Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever noticed how some Americans talk about Christians and Catholics like they're two completely different teams? Well, what if I told you that's not just a weird quirk of language? It's actually a fault line, one that runs deep through American society, and it influences everything, from how much money you might make to the kind of healthcare you can actually get. Today, we're going to explore the two Americas that have been built by one single faith.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll look at the theological blueprint that really started it all, then see how that blueprint built two totally different economic engines. From there, we'll see how those engines created these huge parallel systems in healthcare and education, and finally, how it all comes to a head in the voting booth.
You know, if you spend any amount of time in the U.S., you're bound to hear it. Someone will say, "Oh, she's not Christian, she's Catholic." And that's a bit of a puzzle, isn't it? Because, well, aren't Catholics a type of Christian? This little distinction that seems so minor is actually the key that unlocks a much bigger story about America.
Yeah, this is so much more than just a matter of semantics. What if this one distinction is one of the most powerful, invisible forces in American life? A force that helps shape the laws we pass, the politics we practice, and even the medical care we can receive.
So here's the secret decoder ring. When a lot of Americans say Christian, what they're really saying is Protestant. It's become this kind of cultural shorthand, and it points directly to a historical split that has been shaping the entire country for centuries.
Now, to really get this divide, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, to the core disagreement that set these two traditions on completely different paths. And you know what? It all boils down to one powerful question. Who's in charge?
For Protestants, the answer was nothing short of revolutionary. Sola scriptura, which means scripture alone. The Bible is the ultimate, the one and only, infallible authority. For Catholics, though, authority is a bit different. It rests on three interconnected pillars. You have the Bible, yes, but you also have sacred tradition, all the teachings passed down through the ages. And then there's a third, super crucial element.
And that third leg of the stool? It's something called the magisterium. The easiest way to think of it is as the Church's living, breathing teaching authority, with the Pope and the bishops as its official voice. And this is exactly what allows the Catholic Church to make official statements on modern dilemmas the Bible never mentioned. Things like in vitro fertilization or the ethics of artificial intelligence.
This is just a perfect way to visualize the Catholic worldview. See, it's not a ladder with one thing more important than the other. It's a three-legged stool. Each leg needs the other two to hold the whole thing up. If you take one away, it all just collapses. And this fundamental difference in where authority comes from, well, it's the blueprint for literally everything that comes next.
Okay, so we've got these two different blueprints for faith, but these ideas didn't just stay inside the walls of a church. Oh no, they spilled out into the world, and they ended up shaping two very different ways of looking at money, work, and, well, what it even means to be a society. So on one side, you've got the Protestant emphasis on a direct, personal connection with God. This fueled an incredibly powerful work ethic and a spirit of self-reliance. Some historians even call it the spirit of capitalism. But on the other side, Catholic teaching has always focused way more on the community, on the idea that we're all in this together, and we have a special duty to look out for the most vulnerable among us.
And in modern America, one branch of that Protestant ethic has really morphed into what's called the prosperity gospel. This is the idea that wealth isn't just a possible sign of God's favor, it's a direct reward for your faith. The flip side of that, of course, can be the implication that poverty is a sign of personal or spiritual failure. It's a mindset that is just worlds away from the Catholic teaching of having a preferential option for the poor.
Now look, these aren't just abstract ideas we're talking about. These two worldviews have been busy for over a century, building massive, parallel institutions. And their rules directly impact millions of Americans every single day, whether they're religious or not.
Okay, here's a fact that might actually blow your mind. The single largest nonprofit healthcare provider in the entire United States is the Catholic Church. And we're not talking about a handful of local clinics here. This is a massive nationwide network of hospitals, and they all operate under a very specific moral code. And the scale is just staggering. Get this. Nearly 2 out of every 5 women of reproductive age in the U.S. live in a county where Catholic hospitals are a major or even the only player in town. This means, for millions of women, their practical access to healthcare is being filtered through Catholic doctrine.
So, what does that actually mean on the ground? Well, it means that certain reproductive health services, things like contraception, sterilization procedures like a tubal ligation, or specific infertility treatments, are often simply not available at these facilities. And in many communities, those facilities are the only hospitals for miles.
And it's not just healthcare. We see the exact same pattern playing out in education. You've got the huge Catholic school system, the nation's largest private school network, which has often been praised for its academic rigor and for building strong community bonds. And then you have the Protestant influence, which was foundational to the public school system and is now a major driving force behind the huge growth in homeschooling and many of the elite private prep schools.
So, with such deeply different worldviews in these giant parallel institutions, is it any surprise that this great divide finds its ultimate expression on the biggest stage of all? We're talking about American politics, because how you worship is one of the single best predictors of how you vote.
Let's start with the most solid voting bloc in the country, white evangelical Protestants. They are the absolute bedrock of the modern Republican Party. I mean, look at that. An overwhelming 85% either identify as Republican or lean that way. It's a number that has stayed incredibly consistent for years. But the Catholic vote. Now, this is where things get really fascinating and really dynamic. Just look at the shift among Hispanic Catholics. Back in 2016, only about 24% voted for Trump. Fast forward to 2024, and that number has rocketed up to 40%. This isn't a small change, this is a political earthquake. It represents a massive potential realignment as this huge, growing demographic shifts towards the GOP.
This slide gets right to the heart of a really interesting tension inside American Catholicism. Let's take the death penalty. A solid majority of white Catholics, 65%, support it. But the official teaching of their own church, which was updated just a few years ago, now calls it inadmissible. This is a really powerful example of the gap that can exist between what the leadership teaches and what the people sitting in the pews actually believe.
So, after looking at all of this, theology, economics, healthcare, politics, what's the big picture here? What's the main takeaway from all this? America wasn't built by just one worldview. It was built by the constant push and pull of these two incredibly powerful Christian engines. One of them champions the individual, liberty, and the authority of Scripture. The other champions the community, order, and the authority of tradition. Their conflict and their cooperation have shaped pretty much everything we see around us today.
And that brings us to one final question, and this one's for you. As America keeps changing and evolving, which of these two powerful engines do you think is going to drive its future? Is it the Protestant ideal of individual freedom, or is it the Catholic vision of a community working together for the common good? We'd love to hear what you think in the comments.